recently re-recorded an Ask Me Anything on YouTube Live, and we are sharing that here with you today. So we're going to skip our segment and get right to that Ask Me Anything. Hit that music.
Hello and welcome to the second Ask Me Anything that we are doing with Environmental Professionals Radio. This is an hour or more dedicated to your environmental career questions and or anything else. Maybe you want to know the last time I watched Jurassic Park, which was like 2 months ago. So there you go. Or what the average temperature in Nome, Alaska is. It really is an Ask Us Anything. So don't be shy. Don't be afraid to ask. We will be sure to answer as much as we can in the time that we have. So yes, I am Nick Frederick. I'm one of the hosts of the EPR podcast, and I am here with Laura, the other host. So I would love to start out by welcoming our guests. So first, I want to thank everyone for being here. They don't have to do this. I really, really, really appreciate their time. So thank you all. But tonight with us, we have Erica Moultonin, the STEM director at St. Petersburg College and Antarctic Explorer, which is extremely cool, very jealous, which actually is true of just about everybody here. So Ron Deverman is the Vice President and National Environmental Planning Leader at STV. Larry O'Neill is the Associate Professor at Oregon State University and is an Oregon State climatologist. He also has a dog, Rocco, that may also be joining us later tonight. So listen for barks if you hear him. That's what it is. We have Tom Abdallah, the Assistant Vice President and Chief Environmental Engineer for the MTA's Construction and Development Agency. And last but not least, we have Kevin Doyle, the Executive Director of Career and Professional Development at Yale School of the Environment. So we do obviously want to start with some really...
I'm going to pause you, Nick, because you zoomed right over our sponsor.
Oh, did I? Yes. Wow, I do this. This is a beautiful thing about my brain. So yeah, it's right there. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I do want to thank Ron and STV for sponsoring the event this evening. So apologies, Ron. But yeah, STV is an award-winning professional firm that consistently ranks among the country's top companies in transportation infrastructure, including rail, mass transit, highways and bridges, water, and social infrastructure such as healthcare, education, and justice. Throughout the United States and Canada, STV's professional, technical, and support personnel offer services to a broad and expanding client base. Thanks again, Ron. Apologies for skipping over that. But yeah, like I say, we want to start the Ask Me Anything by asking really easy questions right off the top. And if you know anything about the show, you know I'm kind of lying. So here we go. The first question I have is going to be for everybody, but we have a student who's asking, they're saying they're about to graduate in the spring, which is much closer than I care to admit. What should they be focusing their efforts on right now? And Kevin, I'm going to start with you.
So great question. And I guess I'll ask you, do we know anything about this person's general, focus area or aspirations, or whether they're an undergrad, anything at all that you can share with me before I answer?
Yeah, sure. So actually we'll take it from someone who's deciding whether they want to pursue what they want to do for next steps, right? So if they want to go into the business realm, for example, we'll start there.
Good. Okay. So there's 3 things that we suggest that people do. One of them is focused on you, understanding yourself, what you want, your aspirations, what you don't want. The more you know about yourself and where your direction is, that's step 1. Step 2 is, what do you know about your prospective employer? You should know details. You should get down to the program level, the project level, the individual person level, anything that you can find out that is publicly available about those people. And then, of course, you put the 2 together. You try to find out, are you a good fit for what they need, for what they want, for what they aspire to, what they say about themselves? And if you do those 3 things, you'll be well positioned for details that I'm sure we'll be talking about over the course of tonight about job search tactics, interviews, strategies, and so forth. But that's where you start. Who are you? Who are they? Where's the intersection?
Yeah, very, very cool. I love it. It's nice and succinct as well. So really, really good answer. Love to hear that. So I don't know, Erica, we talked a little bit about, that's like on the business side, is there a difference for if you want someone to come to your program as a grad student, right? They are graduating as an undergrad right now. You're looking at them and saying, this is what you should be doing.
So we don't have a full graduate program, but we do have a bridge to baccalaureate from our community college. But we also do advise a lot of folks earning a 4-year degree, like a Bachelor of Science at our school. And typically the advice is if you don't have an internship, consider this summer after graduation should be the one where you work really hard to find one. Right. And those should already be locked in by now. If not, start really looking because now's the time. And then maybe consider taking some time in space, particularly in some of the STEM careers, environmental science, marine technology, to explore a few of those internships, just for the simple fact that you might not want to lock yourself into grad school until you've had some opportunity to see what's out there in the marine field, particularly in the environmental field. It might not be for you. I know there's a lot of components of going out to sea or spending 18 days in the field at 104 degrees. And yeah. So this summer is a good time to decide that if it's for you and you want to keep going, or you're okay with 18 days in the field and 320 at a computer. So yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. And Larry, I saw you're nodding your head along as well. Anything to add there?
No, I really like the suggestions about kind of finding out a little bit more about what you want. And that's one of the things when I advise students on kind of next career steps, both undergraduates and graduates. One thing that comes up is that the student will have, they'll want to be like in a certain area of the country, or they'll want to be, like a really certain area or something. So, an environmental science degree can be very broad. It's very interdisciplinary. There's lots of different tracks you could take. And so, at this point in time, as you're considering what to apply to, it's really good to know like what things that you would do. For instance, field work, as was mentioned, but also, if you want to be in a national lab or in a company or something, or if you want to be in a certain area, like, for instance, a lot of environmental professionals like the outdoors. And so they want to be somewhere where you could do lots of hiking or something, someplace like Boulder, Colorado, or the Pacific Northwest, or parts of the East Coast or something like that. And that's really important for them. And so, being kind of realistic about, the kind of place, because now, once you get your degree and start to think about, you're starting to think about a little bit longer term and the kind of experiences you want. And so kind of having a list and really kind of thinking carefully about what would make you happy and what kind of things that you would want to do. Because there's lots of opportunities out there. So you don't necessarily have to like not do something you want because you feel like there's few opportunities out there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, it's funny you say that. Like I remember being 22 and being like, I guess I'll do grad school now, So how do you, and Tom, I want to ask you, I'll start with you on this one. So how do you decide, like, you're trying to find that thing, like, what do I enjoy? What do I need? What am I good at? First of all, too, because that also matters, right? I think that's super important.
Absolutely.
So how do we get there? How do you actually figure that out?
Yeah, I think I also, at the same time, thought back to when I was 22 and graduating in 1985. First thing I was thinking about this time was graduating. That was my focus as a chemical engineering student. That was the roughest 6 weeks of my life. And then I again, looking back, because it was so long ago, I think one thing is not to be in such a hurry. You have so much time. Yeah. And I think I'll echo a lot of things what I heard, but I think there's an environmental entity aspect to almost any entity. And so I would say first look at what you enjoy. Are you into aviation? Are you into trains? Are you into restaurants? Like what's one of your passions? Cars, for instance. And, again, you can, since there's environmental impact to everything, and if your focus is on trying to, reduce greenhouse gases or reduce pollution, there is just everywhere they can do better. And so focus on the like an entity that you enjoy first. I mean, you have to get a job, and then that's like one of the maybe top 5 hardest things in the world to do is get that first job. So take it seriously. It is a job in itself. And also, I know it's going to sound crazy, enjoy the process. It's actually...
Yeah. It's so true though. You say that, like one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, as I was really stressing, like I came out of grad school. I went in 2007, out in 2009. And for anyone who knows our history, there was a recession right in the middle. I was stressing, trying to find a job. It was a hard time. And somebody told me, she said, Nick, when you get your job, you will be working for 30 plus years. Enjoy the break. And It was the best piece of advice. To this day, I still think about that. I'm like, enjoy the break. Okay, got it. Which is so hard to do, I know. But Ron, we haven't heard from you yet. So, when you're, giving advice to young professionals that are like, in this springtime mode, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on both the questions you've asked so far. And just for context, I'm on the adjunct faculty of Northwestern University here in Evanston in the Chicago region. And I teach a course every fall quarter in their Masters of Project Management program. And that program is housed within their McCormick School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. So I'm working with master students. In addition to the course material, I spend time helping them with their resumes and giving them some pointers as far as how to develop those and also how to interview and present yourself and your experience and talents and education. And a lot of the students will come up to me afterwards. I welcome looking at their resumes, giving them some ideas. And because the company I work for is a national North American company, and I've been very involved, of course, past president of the National Association of Environmental Professionals. My network is also national. So if they want to move to a different location in the country, I know people there, and I can help connect them. And even if it's local to Chicago, I can suggest some companies to maybe put their resume in. And then once they get the interview and that sort of thing, and a lot of time I said, I'll be a reference for you as well. I want to do everything I can to help them get their first job and launch their careers. So.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into what I want to talk about next, which is networking, right? And I think a lot of times we're in late March, so hopefully there's already been some networking if you're graduating. But if you're not graduating and you're still in your program and you're still working on other things, there's plenty of time to network. And honestly, I would say it never, ever, ever stops. But it seems daunting, and I know so many students are afraid to do even. It's like, what do I do? How do I do this? Right? And there's easy things that, like, we all have a network already, right? We have friends, family, etc. But how do you, and this is going to be a question for everybody. I do want everyone to get some time in with this one. What advice would you give for people trying to, first of all, say, networking is hard, and then giving them advice on how to really get that thing started? And Erica, I'll start with you.
Oh gosh, I'm just sort of laughing in my head because I love to be an introvert. And I know that when I go to a conference and come home, like I want to take a week sick leave and just stay home. And I try to be the master of the Irish exit. So if you're an introvert, I'm just letting you know that I feel you. But it's so vitally important. Here, I'm really lucky in the Tampa Bay area. There's quite a plethora of marine science and marine technology and environmental science organizations. We're really, really expanding in the Tampa Bay area and this middle central Florida region. We use Meetup. We have a marine science meetup that quite honestly started as an old school listserver email that went out and people were like, hey, we're meeting at XYZ restaurant and we're all just going to hang out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, have drinks if you want to, maybe share some food and just kind of casually conversate about what's going on in our lives. But the Marine Science Meetup or the Marine Science Happy Hour in the Tampa Bay region has grown exponentially, and quite a few people know about it globally. And so when a lot of vessels come into this area, we've even had Bob Ballard's group come in, some other NOAA ships. So if it happens to coincide with the once a month meetup, a lot of times the crew will disembark and come ashore and just chat with everybody. So it's been really excellent. It's a wide breadth and depth of folks who come, everybody from undergrads to grads, to folks from as far away as Sarasota, at Mote Marine Lab. So we just, we meet up once a month on a Thursday and hang out for a couple hours. And it's just really, really nice. And it gives students who, particularly in this post-Panini era, the opportunity to have some FaceTime with a professional and really casually, without that pressure, right, for us introverts, to have a face-to-face conversation. So I would seek those out. And the other thing too is just, gosh, there's tons of listservs out there for conferences and presentations and events that are going on. And the more you participate in, the better. I mean, you have to market yourself, right? All the time. And a lot of these organizations quite often are searching for students to help with everything from check-in and registration, which then means that you get a free pass to that conference or event or that meeting. So those are great ways to seek out, opportunities to connect with folks. So I would look on, the meetup apps for folks who are interested in the same topic area you are. And then also really push hard to see what kind of student level organizations are present at your school. If you don't have a professional membership, I'm telling you right now, Aunt Beth wants to get you a graduation gift, and that's what it should be. Yes, so pay the membership dues for whatever professional organization. I mean, there's something for everybody, right? Marine Technology Society, IEEE, cetaceans, seagrass. I mean, limnology. There's tons of them out there. So
including the National Association of Environmental Professionals for those in environmental policies. Just a shameless plug right in there.
Yes.
Am I the treasurer? Exactly. To say? But thanks, Erica. Appreciate that. Tom, do you want to jump in there? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think most of these conferences, and in the transportation world that I reside in, the American Public Transportation Administration, the Transportation Research Board, they have many conferences. They also have discounts for students. And oftentimes the committees, in specific areas, will look for a quota of students to be part of it. And I love the idea of volunteering as well, because I think that also gets you in the door as well. I think, as an adjunct at Columbia University, I think as a graduate program is 50% a networking gig, not only with your fellow classmates, but with the faculty as well. So, a lot of opportunities for students, undergrad and graduate students.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, any more to add?
Maybe a little pushback. I hate the word networking, and I urge people to not think of that word because it calls to mind transactional things. Drive a relationship towards getting something from someone. Right. So I like to say, abolish the word networking and think about this. Cool people talking to each other about things they care about. So if the conversation that you're about to have doesn't fit under that definition, don't have it.
Right.
And that's why the advice that is being shared here about the context in which those kind of conversations can happen are usually where people are getting together to talk about the work itself. So ask yourself, what community of practice do you want to be in?
Right.
And then join it, because the conversations that will happen in those spaces will feel real and genuine and honest and of value to everyone. And there'll come a moment when the magic thing happens where they'll say, well, tell me more about you. Where are you going? How can I help? But I also love what Ron said, which is that seek out people who are raising their hand to help you. They're calling out. They're saying, yes, I want to help you. Come, ask. I will open doors. I'll introduce people. So do it. And so that's my thoughts about the so-called networking.
Oh man, I love that so much, and it's very, very fair. And I think it's funny. Like I remember, like one of the you go to a conference, right? And everybody has these expectations. I have to get along with everybody. I have to have great conversations. And you're so right. You're just looking for people with like minds that you just enjoy talking to, and everything else fits. I remember being at a conference, and I talked to somebody, and I told them what I did, and the person literally just turned and walked away. And it's like, because he told me what he'd done already. And it was like, there's no crossover. He didn't say goodbye, which would have been a nice thing to do. But it's like, okay, we're wasting our time. Cool. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I'll go find someone else to talk to, right? I think maybe a younger version of me would have been terrified of that. But, it's just...
I'll just add on, though, that the moment will come when they will be willing and interested for you to reach out for help.
Yes.
So just don't do it first. Build some kind of relationship based on something that feels more real so that you both have an interest in helping each other because of how it started. So
exactly right. I mean, you can ask a lot of your best friend, a lot more of them because you have a great relationship. Like, hey, I'm moving. Can you please help me move? They're more likely to say yes than, someone you just met at a conference, right? So that's a very, very fair point. Larry, anything else Erica, you wanted to hop in?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to make one little nudge about those relationships. Make sure that whatever platform is chosen to have those communications, whether that's you decide to use a messenger service or text or an email, that when you start to communicate and folks like myself reach out just to let you know about a job opportunity or an upcoming conference or things like that, to respond to those same methodologies of communication. I do have quite often students who, right now there seems to be a trend about I check my email once a week for a work-life balance. Sometimes, you need to check every day if we're working on something, because sometimes something might pop up, at the last minute. And I've unfortunately had quite a few of those sort of missed connections because, so I just want to make sure that sort of drive home that point when folks are communicating. You're timely in your responses.
Yes. And we're all different. We all have different things going on. There's lots of stuff that happens, and try not to take it too personally either is what I would add to that. But if you don't hear back, or right away. But yeah, Larry, want you to hop in here as well.
Yeah, there's some great advice so far. And one thing I want to add that I usually try to counsel, students or early career professionals in is being prepared for these type of conversations. And so a lot of times, at a conference or over email or something like that, if you just ask somebody, "Oh, who are you? What are you doing?" and the person acts like they've never thought about, how to respond to that question.
Yeah,
right. So there's a cliche about an elevator speech, and it sounds cliche, but it's actually super important. And so usually, like the students I directly mentor and advise, actually before the first conference or before the first type of thing, is to actually write down a 30-second elevator speech. And don't forget to say your name, and then I'm a hydrologist and I go to school here, and my aspiration is this. And, right now I'm working on a experiential learning project to, sample water quality in a stream somewhere. And those sort of things, if it's short. So if the person you're talking to, there's no overlap or there's no real interest, they'll be like, "Oh, that sounds nice. This is great beer." Bye. Kind of thing. But also, but also it could lead to the follow-on questions. So if you keep it short enough, then there will be some follow-on questions. And so it'd be kind of like, it's just kind of human nature that if you just give somebody a little bit of who you are, they'll want to know more. And so they'll ask more. And then you could start getting into a little bit more untethered conversation that is real and genuine and things like that. So having that. And then I also think about having actually another like 1 to 2 minute part where you kind of talk a little bit more detail about what you do and what your aspirations are, where your career stage is, kind of things like that. Because somebody who you might pique their interest, there's something about you and everything. Being prepared for that will lead to a little bit more productive conversation. And one of the reasons I say that is because when I was an undergraduate and a beginning graduate student, is that somebody would ask me that question and it would just be deer in the headlights kind of thing. And then a lot of stumbling and inefficient, kind of inefficient description or something like that. And so saying stuff like that, and even if your career aspirations are kind of to be decided, that is still a great kind of thing as well. And then because there are a lot of people like that, and there's obviously lots of different directions to go into. And so that's perfectly fine to not know with laser focus on which track you're going to go on and what you're looking for.
Yeah. And it's honest, right? It's an honest answer. And sometimes I had no idea when I was coming out of grad school or, undergrad, I had even less of an idea then. So that's a very, very fair thing for sure. Yeah.
And that sort of thing could be used, you don't have to think about it as networking per se, but it's just talking to everybody. It really helps. And especially you start to do it more like us now, we're kind of at a career stage where we don't have to do that anymore. We could give our 30-second spiel.
With your eyes closed.
Like And the second thing one of the other things I would say is to not be shy, to be, you can go up to, if you see somebody at a conference and they work at this place where I might want to work at, don't be shy about going up to them at maybe at an appropriate time, maybe not when they're in the bathroom or giving a talk or something directly.
Hey, nice. Yeah.
But, really catching the person and saying, "Hey, I'm interested in your work and would like to meet with you. Can I buy you a coffee or can we talk for 10 minutes or something like that?" Not being shy is really useful. And that can be really hard for people to do. And some people might think, oh, I haven't done enough. There's,
Right.
we have all this kind of self-doubt sometimes, and to kind of let it go. The worst that'll happen is that the person will say, oh, this doesn't work out, and then it'll just be forgotten. But, really respect people who do that, and you can do that. So,
and it's like, I would add, I think almost everybody that you meet at a conference has been approached by someone they don't know. Almost every single person. So none of it is surprising or shocking. It's expected. And there's, if you need to breathe first, right? Don't be afraid to take a second and go in, get out, breathe again. It's okay. You don't have to just go, you, and I think that's so easy to do, especially when you're young. You're like, I have to talk to everyone, all the people, The other thing I'd say before I transition to my next question is I love when, it's like even a bad experience, right? Even somebody who literally just stopped talking to me and walked away, I still learn something from it, right? I still get, oh yeah, I'm wasting the time. That's what's happening here. I can be, and I still got to practice my speech. I still said who I was. I still said what I did, and I still said what I was interested in. There's always something. So Ron, when you have
Nick, just a couple of thoughts to add to this great advice that Erica and Tom and Larry and Kevin have given, related to joining associations, going to conferences. What I would add would also, with associations, start volunteering for leadership positions. And you might start with chairing a committee, and then maybe you get on the executive committee for treasurer or secretary, and then vice president, that sort of thing. That's always very, very good. And then kind of to Kevin's point about interacting, it's really all about building relationships, and that's why just having that interaction and starting to build that relationship with another person who can give you good advice in your career. And I liked what Larry said about don't be shy. And I want to give you an example. One of my students from the last fall quarter here at Northwestern, she's graduating this June. Her focus is project management, but it's sort of on the information technology side. And she's really into web design and stuff. And she was showing me her master's project that she was doing. She wanted to meet for coffee and tea at a local coffee shop there, very right on campus. But she also told me, well, yeah, I like information technology. That's the career I want to go into. But I've actually been painting since age 6. Right. And Professor Deverman, I've painted a painting of you. And so she gave me the painting, and it was sort of based on my headshot that's, on the Northwestern,
above and beyond.
So I every morning I get up and I look at myself, and it's kind of eerie, But I really appreciated the gesture. So there you go.
And extremely memorable, right? Extremely. That's a way to get noticed, right? Yeah.
That is not shy.
No, not shy at all. Maybe.
No, not shy.
Oh man, that is absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for answering that question. That was great. And I think, a lot of this is trial and error. I think, we're getting good advice. And one of the things that I thought of just hearing you guys talk, I had somebody when I was adjunct faculty at VCU, I actually had a student approach me during finals and was like, can you write a recommendation letter for me? I'd never talked to this person. I was like, you're in my class. Okay, that's good. Cool. And we're in the middle of finals. So I have the two hardest weeks of my life. You are asking me to do something that's due in like 3 days. And, I was like, I appreciate you asking that, but I can't do that. I can't do that. I wish you had asked me, a few months ago, and we start that relationship. So I'm sure we all have examples of, like somebody who had the best intentions didn't come out the right way. Do you guys want to share any experiences like that? Anything come to mind of an example or an event where you gave advice to someone that needed it? And I know it's a really challenging one, so I'll let you guys think on that for a second. And if you don't worry. We also do have an audience question, so I'll give it.
Well, I was thinking of the interview question about, and I was approached about how can I be my best in an interview.
Right.
And I basically said a lot of things what we've been saying here. One of them is have a conversation. Don't think of it as kind of like, I know it's really important to you, but kind of think it's like two human beings just, talking to each other and just, sharing some common interest in whatever. And I actually said something like, don't be shy.
Yeah.
And the person actually said, well, I don't really like talking about myself. And I said, well, this is not the time to be shy or to be humble. So you want to give them, don't get overly confident and don't get overly egotistical, but you are in an interview and you are talking about yourself and try to do it in a way that it doesn't come off as pompous, but humble, but you got to talk about yourself and you have to, but do it in a natural way. I know it's easy for us to say that here now.
Right.
But it is good advice.
Right. Yeah. So hello, my name is Nick. Yeah. You don't want to do that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we do have an audience question here. So I'm going to dive right into it. And again, I think we'll let everybody answer this one as well. So someone asks, I'm in the process of applying to graduate schools in Europe. I was just accepted to my first program at UC Dublin. What advice do you have for choosing the right master's program? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
So the right master's program is the Yale School of the Environment.
Perfect. Yes.
So we get asked this question a lot, and we have 4 sort of points that we like to say. Is one of them is that graduate school is an experience of engagement with faculty. And so you should know, ideally, which faculty members by name are in the sub area that you are interested in, because graduate school is not a generic experience. You're going to be working more closely with some people than with others. So that's the first. So the second one that we ask people to look at is get data about where do the graduates go. So, for example, most graduate schools are members of the National Association of Colleges and Employers organization called NACE. And NACE has a requirement that you do first destination surveys and that you post them on the website of the organizations. So you can find out, where did the graduates go? How much money did they make? What was their job? And so forth. So that's the second thing. So the third thing is talk to some people who are current students there, reach out to them and say, so what's the experience like? And then the last thing is, who are you and what are you really trying to get out of graduate school? For some people, it's a pathway to a doctorate. Right. For some people, it's an examination of issues and trends and learning, almost more for non-career areas. And for other people, it's, I want to get a job. That's why I'm going to graduate school. And so talk to people with the filter that's your filter. Don't ask generic questions. Ask your questions. And if you use those 4 things, you'll probably choose the ones that are right for you. With one last thing, what is the financial aid package? Because it's huge.
Yeah.
We find that the people who choose not to come to our graduate school, it's almost always because they got a better financial package somewhere else. So that's my little lecture.
No, that's very, very fair. And I don't know, Larry, do you want to hop in? Anything to add to that?
Yeah. So, I guess I could go on for this. So I really agree with what Kevin was saying about, doing those things, especially like really talking with the students and then also faculty. So graduate school is definitely one of those things where, the earlier you start doing that. So even before the admission cycle begins, before applications are due, hopefully well before they're due, is, talk to the people in like the sub-disciplines you want to work at. Sometimes in each program that you apply to, there's usually a concentration of those sorts of individuals. So if you do know kind of the sub-discipline that you want to go into, there'll be a few of those people that you could talk with. And, I think one of the most important things, and I think Kevin kind of spoke to this too, is about a graduate program is your advisor or your lab group. So, learning more about that, especially about availability too. So sometimes if you just apply to a graduate program and you haven't learned anything about that, if that lab group or that advisor doesn't have availability, they may not reach out to you and say, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting you because you're not, worthy or whatever, or you're not qualified, or I wouldn't be interested in you. I just don't have an opportunity this admission cycle, which is really it for an advisor. I have to say it is heartbreaking in those kind of circumstances, especially when, somebody's very excited and stuff, but there's just the resources are just not there, or I already have 3 or 4 graduate students, and putting another one on that is saturation,
right.
stuff like that. But if you contact the member, especially months before, not only they can make that clear, but I do this quite often. I'm sure everyone here does, and a lot of other people do too, is that you can actually have a conversation. We can have Zoom calls about just talking about the field or what potential opportunities could be out there. That's actually one way to network in this, turn the application process into a networking thing, because, perhaps I don't have an opportunity, but perhaps I have a colleague that I admire or respect or whatever, that is in the same subdiscipline that I could refer you to, that maybe you wouldn't have known it before. The other thing too is, to apply to several places. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right. Right. Do people do that? Is that ever a thing where people's like, whoa, maybe not this cycle, but you'll catch me next cycle? So I should wait. Does that ever happen?
We find that's more in the doctoral world than in the graduate world, just for us.
Yeah. So it seems to be the same there. Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. Erica, you were nodding along as well. Anything to add?
I mean, there's a couple things with the graduate school. I mean, if you already have a school picked out in your head there, that's great. But if not, if you're leaving undergrad and you're thinking about taking a year or two, which I recommend, go ahead and take some of those courses or classes that you need or exams that might be required for the grad schools that you're thinking about. I think the GRE score is still currently good for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so, if you can take it right after undergrad or while you're finishing up your undergrad, and kind of store that in your personal bank for when you're ready to apply. All the things you've learned, all of us, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. So take that opportunity, right, if you're going to think about it. And I think that Kevin really, that last point about the financial components, I've worked with several students who are interested in graduate school programs, particularly horticultural components related to like the National Park Service and preservation and conservation of endangered lands. And so we've done some salary searching by contacting National Park Service folks. And so, it pays decent, somewhere in the 60 to 85 range. But if grad school is going to run you $300,000, that message that Kevin was giving you about check the financial components, you might need to think about the schools that you want to apply to. And so the best school might not be the best outcome unless they're giving you a good financial package, or the faculty that you want to work with have some federal funding to help cover that for you. So that's a really big component to take a look at.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot. And we do have our second question coming in here from the audience. Please keep those coming. Love that they're coming in here. Or our next question, excuse me, from the audience. So love that they're coming in. Please keep them up. I'm going to start with Tom on this one here. We have someone asking, how would you respond to a potential employer asking you about how you left your company when you were fired? Which is it happens,
Okay, so let me just see if I got that. How did I like my company after they fired me?
No. What advice would you give to someone who has to explain why they left? And it was because they got fired.
Oh, well, that's a sensitive question.
Yes, I know, right? Yeah.
Oftentimes, there's usually a story behind it. There's a break in the action and the resume, and you have to sensitively ask what those is. I have actually come across that as an employer, as somebody who hires people, and usually you just sort of give them a chance. I see you didn't work between 2018 and 2021. Were you on tour with the with the rock group, or were you just sort of playfully ask for it, and you could be blindsided with I had taken care of a family member that was not feeling well, or there could be a lot of sensitivities there. If they were actually fired, hey, look, people get fired and not because they did anything wrong. I mean, usually, in our business, in the capital construction world, if there's no funding for construction projects and a firm doesn't have the work, you may be doing really great work and your services are not needed, not because of anything you did. So there's kind of always an excuse. Well, at least not an excuse, but an answer. But it's kind of a sensitive thing. But just try to project that you're not going to make any judgments. And if you can, because we all, listen, every one of us has had issues that we don't want to tell the whole world about. But and so if it's, it's too private in information, maybe they say, look, I don't want to tell you that it's private. You'd also give them that out. Say, maybe this might be too much to ask, but just be sensitive about it. And also on the other side, just, things happen. Things happen in life. And you can make mistakes. We've all made mistakes, and we've all done things that, we'd love to turn the clock back and do that and say, hey, look, but, hey, I learned from that and I'll do something different next time, or just give an opportunity. And I just want to go back to the original question just for 1 second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What I've seen in a lot of ways, going back to the financials, a lot of companies now if you're an undergrad and you're looking for a company, one of the things that you might say is, what will you provide me as far as graduate school is concerned? Like, does the company put you through graduate school? Because companies can do that. So that might be a question that you may want to ask first. And then when you get to that company, then you sort of have your options are open because your employer is going to pay for some of your education.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You don't necessarily have to go high school, college, grad school, doctorate. Right? You don't have to do that path. You can take different ways to get there. For sure. That's a great point. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. But kind of tying off to the question we got, one of the things to spin that a little bit, I think many people here, you guys may have all done this, where you've sat down with someone and you're making a decision. Am I going to hire this person? Am I going to accept this person into our program? And you have to decide yes or no, right? So I'm sure there are tips and tricks we've got. And Ron, I'm going to start with you, but I'm sure we've got plenty to go around. What advice would you give for people who are trying to do well in that interview?
Yeah, well, I think they just need to be very personable, but also really emphasize in the interview with real sort of examples how their experience has helped them succeed to this point in their career. And especially in consulting, you're looking for that. You're looking for someone to be, very proactive and have a good sense of what the market is and understand, it kind of goes to when I'm interviewing someone, is this person a good fit for a project team? Because we work in a team setting for our clients. And is there the billable work? Again, in consulting, we've got to think about that as a manager of my transportation planners. And is it there? And what do they bring that actually can maybe even help us win future job with a good foundation client that we have? So you can tell if somebody's just telling you a story or it's coming from that real experience that they have, so.
Yeah, well, 100%. Yeah. It's what does it say? It's hard to fake being genuine.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Be genuine. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, I don't know. Anyone else want to add on to that before we move up?
I'll just pitch in, and I think it'll be something that might sound obvious, but sometimes it's the most obvious things that are the easiest overlooked, which is they're asking only one question. Are you a good fit for us?
Yes.
They're not asking how they can help you be more happy, satisfied, productive, whatever. And so keep that in mind and ask yourself, am I a good fit? Am I a good fit for here? Based on the information that I have about what they're looking for, what they need. And so that means you need to get that information. The more advanced information you can have down to the level of individual projects, individual teams about where they're at, what they need, where the money is coming in, where their pain points are, the more you can say, yeah, I think I could add value here and really mean it.
Yeah.
If you feel like you can add value based on their needs, you're in the right place.
Right. And it's a very good thing you're saying. Like, you're adding information is what you're trying to collect. Because if you know the entire program, who's in it, what they're working on, you already have a leg up over almost everybody else, for sure.
To that point, Nick, what we're always talking about is you have to demonstrate that you're passionate about the environment.
Yeah.
You're interested in the job. And then so the one other point where you can demonstrate that is the end when you go, do you have any questions for me? And so many people say,
no. Yeah, right.
Like, no, I'm sorry, you're not hired. That's it. You're done. Bye. Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Those are really good points. I wanted to say too that one of the reasons it's so important in the environmental fields is because it's so interdisciplinary. And so sometimes it isn't obvious that somebody with, a certain type of degree can help you. And so being prepared having that information and then spending an hour or two preparing for the interview, writing down some ways that you can answer, how your preparation and how your experiences and your expertise can be applied to that is really, I think it just, it really puts you in the best footing. So even if it doesn't work out, you giving yourself the best shot at doing that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah, those are all really great points. Thank you, everyone, for that. Our next question from the audience, and again, keep those coming. We don't be shy. We'll ask as many as we can with the time we've got. And this is actually, kind of calls back to what we were talking about earlier. To what extent does location influence your career goals? Would you advise avoiding crowded areas to be more easily employed, or is that not really a factor? And Erica, I'll start with you.
It's interesting. One of the things Kevin might have a different advice, but for myself with students, one of the things I indicate is there's no reason to put your mailing address or your physical location on your resume anymore, just your email address and your cell phone number. Nobody's sending you a letter. I mean, unless it's 6 months from now that you're not a good candidate. Right. But I have quite often sat in interviews for research positions where the team will say, well, this person is based about 80 miles away and this one is based 30. And the only difference is the commute isn't too far. So let's offer it to the closer person because they know too much information. So I have seen that bias happen quite often.
Yeah.
So the less amount of locale information that you can divulge about yourself on your resume or in an application. I mean, obviously some applications do ask you for, an address and those kinds of things. But yeah, I would kind of avoid that. But I think in my own area of expertise, there's in sort of the marine technology sector where you're going out to sea, quite often many major employers like oceaneering, they don't necessarily really care where you live as long as you're within proximity to an airport because they're going to fly you to the helipad and then you're off to sea at a platform or a ship. So you can live in Iowa and raise horses if you want in your spare time, as long as you got someone to watch them when you're gone. But then there is the component where you do need, if you're going to work in the Gulf of Mexico, it would probably really be helpful to live in one of the bordering states. There's quite a few to choose from. Right. But yeah.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I don't know, Ron, do you have anything along those same lines?
That's a good thought. Again, in our case with our company, we have probably close to 50 offices or so around the country. And sometimes then it's very easy to, if they want to move to a different area of the country, then we can, make that happen for them. But then sometimes, okay, we need a senior transportation planner in the Chicago office because our Midwest market is growing and that sort of thing. So then I feel like as the interviewer, I've got to make that very clear when we're interviewing different candidates, especially. So,
yeah, for sure.
It's important. But as I know someone said, as a consultant, especially, sometimes you're managing projects around different areas of the country. So getting there, flying there or whatever is sort of a part of the consultant workplace. So.
Yeah, I want to jump in here as a New Yorker. We have a plethora of people from around the country and around the world that want to come to New York. I mean, it's a destination for many people. Now, there's a lot of people in New York that love to go out to Montana and Oregon and California and everywhere else. But we do have this advantage of whether you're from America or Europe or South America, that people want to come to work here. And that's like a destination. That's what makes, Columbia a great destination. Also, I have to plug my other university. I work for City College of the CUNY University, City University of New York. These are iconic places, and New York is an iconic place. And then, we can work here, and then you could work for a firm that does projects everywhere else. So it's kind of another thing when I go back to what I said from the beginning, what do you like to do? Well, where would you like to live? Yeah. And if you would want to experience the hustle and the bustle of the 9 million of us here in the region, we'd love to have you and ride the subway and the trains and the buses.
Isn't there a song about that, right? If you could make it here, you could make it anywhere. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really perfect. I love it.
I'd also like to add a little bit, this is some advice that I've given to some students who are in undergrad. if you're really interested in marine science, but you don't consider yourself an outgoing, highly competitive, driven person who likes to compete against other people, then perhaps not choosing a heavily marine science focused undergraduate program is a better option for you. Choose a different university or school that has maybe a smaller population of students. But, so the same thing, if you have a lot of great experiences, I don't think that and you're capable of, putting yourself out there and following through with a lot of the things we were talking about in terms of meeting people and conferences and discussions and all those types of things, and not networking, but chatting about the things that interest you, then I don't see that there's any reason to not join a crowded area. What Tom was saying, move to where it makes you happy.
Right. Yeah. And, just be realistic too, right? It's like, I want to work with great white sharks. Okay. Well, there's like 7 people that do that. So, okay. All right. Doesn't mean you can't, but there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a lot about like what we have here, how to meet people, how to make connections. One of the things I want to kind of put out here as well is, what about developing the skills that are going to help you make those connections? So if you're trying to do work in the environmental sector, whether it's academia or in the business world, what advice would you give people to actually like genuinely develop the skills that they will need to do those things? Kevin, we'll start with you.
So I'm so glad you asked that, because at professional graduate schools, we talk about this all the time. Where's the line between preparing people for skills and work and the workforce and to be, a professional? And where is the line between more academic learning, which is about thinking about things that need to be thought about and, advancing your knowledge, even if it takes you in directions that aren't immediately needed by the workforce. And so we came up with probably what most other graduate schools come up with, which is give people opportunities to do the work while they're in graduate school. So really preference like case studies, capstone projects, client projects, independent studies, internships, semi-internships, even, mini work experiences, because you can turn all of those experiences into things that are both skill learning and academically challenging by proper design. So if you were going to take one thing away from that, is that doing the work together with other people somehow, whether that's a mini project or something that feels more like a job, that's how you learn. You do the work. You don't think about it. You don't watch it. You don't look at it. You don't imagine it. You do it together with other people. And that's how you learn.
Yeah. You could talk all day long about trying to draw blood from a box turtle, but until you're trying to do it. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Larry, anything to add to that?
Yeah, that was actually great advice. And one thing that it got me thinking about was that, when you're considering a graduate program and an advisor and stuff, and talking to maybe previous students, is actually seeing if that program, that advisor, that lab group gives opportunities for that, for that sort of growth. There are a lot of programs, there are a lot of advisors who will put people onto projects that, maybe it's just very lonely. There's not much collaboration with other people. Maybe it's something you're not learning a lot of skills with. And that's a little bit of thinking about as a student who's going into, is trying to choose a project, maybe seeing if that sort of circumstance would be better for you, or if another one where you were part of like an advisor who tried to establish connections with you, tried to think about next steps for you, try to kind of give you opportunity to have skill sets, try to give you projects or opportunities to do that. So, there's quite a bit of responsibility on the advisor and on the graduate program you're joining to do that. And so, and that sort of responsibility isn't shared among, there are some really great programs around the country that do try to do that as much as possible. So that might be a consideration when choosing the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we do also have another audience question here. We will go ahead and roll it out. Erica, before we start?
Can I chime in a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
So I work with a lot of students at the community college level who maybe don't have the financial means to take time off and do an unpaid internship or do a low paid internship. And so one of the things that we work on is trying to find ways to enhance their resume with an enhanced skill set and certificates that would make them stand out to a potential employer. Yeah. And so I put a lot of people in the field. So there are things that you can work on, like getting your Coast Guard small boat handling license. You can get a TWIX card, a transportation workers identification card. That would cost your employer a few $100s. And so if you already have that, and again, that Aunt Beth who's looking to buy your graduation gift, if she can pay for you to have that, that allows you into a lot of ports and private access areas around the country to do technology work at a marine or a port. So having that really beneficial. Things like first aid, CPR that's current, wilderness first responder, if you see that course being offered. And then oddly, quite a few places that I've worked lately have needed a lifeguard on staff to be able to put students or other participants or volunteers into a water-based area. Really important here in Florida. And that's because of liability and insurance reasons. So just having that litany of other, certificates on your resume has really helped a lot of our students who are missing that internship component because they haven't had the time and space to do that component. So making yourself the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Valuable out in the field. So
and you're also proving that you are interested in the field, even if you're not necessarily working in it right now. So that's a great point. Love that. Yeah. So our next audience question here, someone who says, I'm a first-gen graduate and often feel I'm operating blind navigating grad programs. In hindsight, what do you wish you would have known before starting your academic experience? And I know. It's a big question. I keep sending all the big ones to Tom, but I'm going to start with Tom again here.
Well, there's a good question. You obviously, people don't have a crystal ball. You can't know everything. So you have to make the best guess or best decision that you can make. One thing is when you do make a decision, make it with conviction, right? Say, don't look back and regret it. Say, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. You made the decision. And, oftentimes success, especially in a graduate program or any, you get into with a group of people that you enjoy being with or professors that you enjoy. It may be just luck that happens. Yeah. And so you have to sort of give things a try and give it the best because, you can't go to a school and 1 week later, I hate this school, but 1 week, give it some time.
Right.
But also you'll cut bait when it's time and then, move on. And so nobody makes every decision in their life perfectly. I look back, I went to a great school. I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey and I enjoyed that and places I've worked. And I count it as a lot of luck. And that's why I do things like this, because I feel I got lucky along the way. And sometimes, I got so lucky with this job and, working here and being on this program. And I got to give back to the rest of the whoever helps. And so that's one of the reasons why I do what I do and try to be a mentor and any help I can give to the next generation. I'm here for them.
Yeah, which is absolutely great. I love that. Ron, anything to add?
Yeah, just if I take myself as an example, I got my undergraduate degree in civil and environmental engineering at U of I in Urbana. It's still one of the top 2-3 engineering schools in the country. But then when I graduated, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't quite sure I wanted to go into engineering. So I did take a few years off and think about it. And then ultimately went back and got a master's in English at another U of I campus that was close to where I was living. And what's interesting now at this point in my life, having those complements of education with English and expression versus still the technical engineering, I use that learning every day in my work. Because it's usually I'm managing large project development, transportation projects, but, it's the National Environmental Policy Act, environmental impact statements.
Yeah.
We're writing a lot of materials for community outreach and public meetings and things like that. And they all have to be very, very readable. And you got to know the audiences. But yet that technical background still has really served me well in my career. So.
Yeah, absolutely. See, Erica, do you want to hop in here as well? I will let everyone answer this question as well, because I know we all have a different unique experience. So
I lived Tom's advice. So I'm first gen college in my family and then first gen for graduate school as well. But I did take a couple of years off in between undergrad and grad to lock it in and know what I wanted to do. But I started at one university. And then as I was approaching like getting ready to do some field research, I applied for some funding and I received the funding. And my team at the current school I was at said, no, you can't go out into the field and do that all the time with that money, because you also need to, I think this has gone away a little bit, but I would have been responsible for a lot of grading papers and, dishes and monitoring lab classes and that kind of stuff. But, or I could switch schools and, and start with this other program where they were like, absolutely, come here and we'll run your funding through our program and you can go off in the field and do your work. And so I did. It was super, super scary, but it worked out. It took me a little longer to do grad school. It took a little over 3 years to finish that master's degree, but totally worth it. So what Tom was saying, I take some risks, and if it's not working out, don't be afraid to move. You can move as an undergraduate too. You can transfer, but I didn't know anybody that transferred in grad school. And now that I've talked about it, I found some other folks, but I think don't be afraid.
Oh, that's great. And even the thing you're afraid of, right? I remember having like a 2-year, I was like, oh, this is 2 summers, so you can't graduate right away. And then I didn't want to leave. I wasn't ready to go in the real world, so you never know how to work out. Kevin?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say congratulations for taking the risk and being courageous, and trying to do something as a first gen. And secondly, you're not alone. There's a support group in almost every school of people who are there to help you on the financial side, on the student experience side, on the career side, on the achieving academic success, and then also your fellow students who form special interest groups or whatever. So don't assume that the people who are not first gen have it all figured out. They're also scared. They're also trying to, figure it out. So be genuine, be yourself, ask for help when you need it, because there's a whole community at almost every good college there to help you, and they want to help you.
Yeah.
So raise your hand and say, hey, I have a question. I need help of any kind.
Right.
The worst thing is to try to think that you have to do it all by yourself alone.
Yeah.
That's not true. You don't need to do that.
Yeah. Where were you, Kevin, when I was 18? Huh? That's what I want to know. I could have used that advice then. All right, Larry, close out the question for us.
Yeah. So I had the same experience as Erica did. I was my first generation of my family for, undergrad and then graduate school as well. And I started off as a community college student. I actually knew exactly what I wanted to do since I was like 5 years old. And I'd already planned out. I'd actually already planned it out. But I had a circumstances during my teenage years, which was like a super big barrier that I almost derailed the whole thing. But so I had a lot of things. The thing I wish I would have known is, I think a couple of people have made this point, is that, you're not alone, and to seek out help. There are other people. In hindsight, so you might be thinking you're operating blind, but other people see you, and they see you working hard.
Yeah.
They see your passion. They see where you want to go. And, sometimes people won't necessarily reach out in environments, and it's not because they don't, it just, sometimes they just don't know you need either help or like advice, or just, every once in a while a pat on the back or something like that. Yeah. If you're not sure, like, you have like a goal or something like that, you're just not sure how to achieve it. There's different, there are different things that you could, different help that you could need. But if you going to like, there are various things around campus now, that resources now of career development, or maybe counseling or anything like that would be helpful. And these programs have gotten that, a little bit over time, have become a little bit more robust and a little bit more specialized and more helpful. Yeah. And also just reaching out to, advisors or fellow students too, because you can also learn that your peer group is also struggling too. Maybe some people that are not first generation or whatever, they might be struggling too.
Yeah, that's a very great point. And reiterate that as well. That is absolutely true. It's so easy to pretend like you're doing well, but when you do that, you're doing a disservice to yourself, because everyone thinks you're doing well. So no one will help you because they don't think you need it. Very, very great. I love those answers. Those are all so good. So we have one last question we're going to take from the audience. I want to respect you guys' time. Yeah.
Load you up on this one. So first, thank everybody for being here, because I've already told people in the audience, this is the last question. So if you have a question that we haven't got to, you can reach out to anybody here on LinkedIn, and all the names and stuff will be in the description later. So if you need to reach out to anybody or you like somebody's answer and you want more details, whatever, or you want to talk about their schools they are affiliated with, you can reach out to them that way. Also thank STV again, our sponsor, stv-inc.com. And the last question is a spinoff of the one we got earlier about location. So rather than the location on the resume, is it appropriate? Should a person be looking for a specific location because they were told there are more jobs available in California than there are on the East Coast? Or should they try to go for a specific industry because they've heard it's easier to get into?
Yeah, I know.
Apply for everything until you get a job.
That's what I was going to say.
As a career coach, I get this question a lot. This is something that I think there's advice around it out there, but I think it would be good for people to hear it from you all.
Kevin, I could tell. I could see it.
So I'll make this very brief. It's important to know the landscape of the market of the sector that you're interested in because it changes. Money flows, projects rise, things become important, things become less important. And part of that is location. Fortunately, there's huge data available just, a Google click away on almost any question that you can ask. And then the valuable thing is, do you care? So suppose I gave you all the information that there's an amazing amount of new jobs happening in Little Rock, Arkansas, in the water management area, but you don't want to live in Little Rock. So why do you care? So get data, understand it, understand sectors, understand money flows, understand who's rising and falling, what's hot and what's not, but then decide, what does it mean to you? And then you'll probably be okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's great. I don't know, Tom, do you want to add any more?
Well, I think a lot of whether you're looking for an undergraduate or a graduate program or a job or a different career or whatever, it's like fishing. Put as many oars out there in the water and see what bites and make the informed decision. Do your homework. I think one piece of advice I always give, I may have given this on one of our previous shows, but do the very best. The only thing you can control in this life is your effort. Everything else is kind of, serendipity a lot of times, but how hard you work and how much effort you put into it, and also put an effort into having fun. I do that. I put a lot of effort into doing that, and it works. And so I just, want to always say, just do your best and good things will happen.
That's great. Yeah, that's perfect. Like I say, I know we're running out of time. So I want to give one last shout out to everybody here as well. Thank you all so much for your time. And I don't know, Ron, if I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you want to close us out with a poem by any chance? Do you have anything on top of your head?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
Always got one handy.
I knew you would. I knew it.
All right. Okay. Let's, I know you've heard this one, but the title is Survival of the Friendliest. We were taught to work hard. We were taught to remain focused. And we were taught that compassion exists in small gestures, laughter and smiles, endearing looks and touches, all held within these islands of our lifelong friendships. Water, land, and air, words, actions, stories, faith, hope, and grace all spring from our emotional uncertainty to bring us love's warmth. When we keep our eyes towards vulnerability, shared kindness soothes our sense of being. Awakening courage evokes our energy of spirit, and lives lived in sentient wonder tell us we are home again.
Love it. I love it. Thank you so much. That is so great. Thank you all for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Again, do not be afraid to reach out to these folks. They are literally telling you they want to help. So let them do that. Thank you again, everyone. Really, really appreciated seeing everyone today. And have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Great seeing everybody.